Welcome to After the Act, a film podcast where we talk about movies and shows that we like. We're your hosts. I am Grandissimo, here with
Tartar Sauce.
and Tartar Sauce. Today, we will be, kind of bridging the two podcasts a little bit because we're going to be doing our first ever SpongeBob reviewing SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run.
Crossing conscious. This is it.
Crossing conscious.
The inevitability. This has been an inevitability.
It's what the Magic Conch fans have been waiting for. That's our other podcast that you can check out on Spotify, iTunes, wherever. We're live right now on Twitch and YouTube. So like and subscribe, please. If you want to stay updated on the latest content we're bringing you. You get the podcast early on YouTube and Twitch, so please join us. And yeah. It's kind of surprising it took us this long to do a SpongeBob-related movie review. I'm surprised at us.
It's true. It's true. To be honest, though, there haven't been many SpongeBob films, and I think the last one that came out was, I believe, 2013, 2014, if I'm not mistaken, whatever the Sponge Out of Water movie was. So we really this was predating us as a podcasting unit here. So this has actually been a cool experience being able to finally review a SpongeBob movie. They have a very special place in my heart. So every time I watch one of these, the inner child in me just keeps on giggling. But like that SpongeBob giggle where he's like,
Of course.
Just like that. It's also the sound my joints make when I walk. It's weird. But that's a different topic for a different podcast.
That's a joint podcast where we talk about joints in our body and weed, our favorite blunts.
Exactly. But yeah, I was excited to watch this. First time we get to quote unquote cross streams here. So no, it was a lot of fun for the experience. What about you, man? How was your initial feeling when we were reviewing some hard hitting movies here, like I Care a Lot, Judas and the Black Messiah, and then all of a sudden, like SpongeBob movie? How'd you feel?
Had a hit it with the SpongeBob movie. It's fair. We haven't really talked about anything light this year, really, in terms of movie reviews. And obviously, SpongeBob has a special place in both of our hearts because we named our other podcast after a bit in SpongeBob. And it's interesting because my relationship with SpongeBob is like the first 4 to 5 seasons. That's what I watched as a kid. And then I kind of stopped, watched like a SpongeBob movie. I think I've only seen one of them. I haven't seen like Sponge Out of Water or whatever the other ones are. I only seen that original SpongeBob movie. So my standards are pretty high in terms of what I would like SpongeBob to achieve. Because that first movie is just a classic, dude. It still holds up. It bops. It's
very
just,
quotable.
It's forever. So, I assume the quality of SpongeBob isn't the same as it was before. It can't be. It's been 20 years since SpongeBob debuted. It can't have the same kind of energy. It's like a rapper trying to, encapsulate who they were 2 decades ago. It's going to be different. Everyone's different people, different cast members and writers come in and out. So, I tried to temper my expectations and but I was excited. I was kind of, at first I was like, we just did some hard hitting movies. And we're going to go to Sponge on the Run. But it's like, I think that's what the world needs. The world needs a sponge on the run. They need a sponge on the run.
Good contrast.
Yeah. Contrast.
And also, I didn't want to disagree with you about your rapper statement, but tell that to Vanilla Ice. All right, that man has stayed consistent throughout his whole career. All right, so don't go disrespecting Vanilla Ice. Okay,
Killer Vanilla.
Vanilla.
If you're out there listening, I don't like you that much. But welcome to the podcast, to you too.
But God damn it, we respect you.
I wouldn't say that either. But you know what have you felt was because it's interesting. I think this is the first animated movie I've watched all year. So I guess the last few animated movies you watched, how does this hold up? And then how does this hold up as a SpongeBob movie in of itself?
So one of the things that I've always struggled with, and I think I'm slowly beginning to let this go, was I've noticed a very strange transition in animation, because when we were younger, you had the traditional animation of Disney movies, right? You had the 2D animation, hand drawn style, which is, it's iconic. It's what we grew up with. And then it's slowly, I want to say, probably late 2000, early 2000s, mid 2010s, it started transitioning into this very 3D CG look, which took some getting used to for me, to be quite honest. I was never a fan when like animes used to do it, incorporate it, or when other TV shows that we used to watch started incorporating it, like cartoons and things of that nature. Like for instance, Jimmy Neutron. That was pretty new for us back in the day when we started seeing that style of 3D animation. So to me, that was a little weird as a transition, but in terms of animation, now I'm used to it. So seeing the SpongeBob movie, at least this version of it, I think the one before it introduced the same animation style as well. This one's still slightly different, but it just you could tell it looks very artificial, right? It's not meant to make you believe that this is a world that might be real. Like it looks very artificial, but I feel like that adds to the charm of this movie. Like it adds to the bits of everything, which is just SpongeBob has always been something out of this world, has always been over the top and super hyperbolic. So I think it works to the benefit of SpongeBob movies to see this animation style. But to answer the second part of your question, in terms of the other SpongeBob films, like I said, SpongeBob has always had a near and dear place in my heart, our hearts, really. And that first movie for me is iconic. It is a staple. I've seen it recently. It still holds up. The humor is still relevant. It's great for all audiences. Even the second movie, which when I first saw the trailer, I was like, man, this is really dumb. I was already in college. I was like, this just doesn't seem like something I'd be interested in. I've just outgrown SpongeBob, I guess. And then I saw it because, why not? And it was surprisingly great. The humor was still very SpongeBob. It introduced that 3D animation style, but it had a plot that incorporated that into it, where it was like, okay, they have to go onto the surface again and fight Antonio Banderas for some reason, who's a pirate, and I'm loving it.
Why not?
Why not? Exactly. So it worked again. But then this movie came along, and I was excited because the other two were bops to me. I was like, wow, these creators of SpongeBob, they really care about their product because they're putting out movies that are actually really funny and really, really, really well written. And then this one came along, and I don't know, man, I was just kind of thoroughly disappointed. Some of the jokes were okay. They had really good cameos, but I feel like they suffered from the later decade Adam Sandler problem, where a lot of the humor relied on guests appearing out of nowhere in these ridiculous roles, and just the humor wasn't there. Even the plot itself seemed really half-assed. I thought by the end of this film that things wrapped up way too quickly without much of a conflict. And I thought it was just a plug for Camp Coral. This whole movie was just a plug for the new show Camp Coral. So I love Steven Hillenburg, R.I.P. to a legend, but I don't know, man. I just feel like this just isn't the same without him. What about you?
Yeah, it was mostly bad. It was mostly a bad movie. Love SpongeBob. Obviously, we can't really say that enough. But it's mostly bad, and I felt like within the first 15 minutes, I knew it was going to be bad. It's just like the jokes they attempted were just really pedestrian. I feel like SpongeBob usually benefits from that. Usually in the episode format, those 11, 12 episodes, they fit in a lot of jokes in tight spaces, and so it just kind of keeps hitting and hitting. And the first movie found a way to just do that for 90 minutes, and this movie couldn't do it. It did not have enough material to sustain 90 minutes. This probably could have been a 15-minute episode with its concept, and it was difficult because then I found myself trying to figure out what can I like out of this movie. I think the animation was interesting. We talked about the latest trends of animated movies going to a more 3D realm. It's rare for a big studio to have a 2D animated movie. I think the last one I saw was the Justice League Dark movie. And and Raya Last Dragon just came out, so everything's usually sleek in 3D. This one I kind of like the animation. I liked it because they chose a different medium, at least, which allowed them to do different things with like the animated camera, if you will. Like they'll have like POV shots of SpongeBob looking at Gary, and it seems really intimate because he's cuddling with his pet. And you'll never see that in the 2D version of SpongeBob. They won't do that kind of camera angle. So that was an interesting exploration. Like if you're going to do a film, do something different and test out the strains of the medium. So I appreciated that. The celebrity cameos were, they existed. It's always nice to see Snoop Dogg right before seeing Keanu Reeves. And then who else was in there? Had Danny, our boy Danny in there.
Yep.
They didn't really add anything to the movie, though. They were just like, they were there. Like
They didn't, yeah.
Like Snoop Dogg had a good verse that he spit. It was kind of a decent verse, honestly. But beyond that, it was like, okay, we don't need Keanu Reeves in this movie. I don't know why he's this tumbleweed sage guy. Surprisingly, Keanu Reeves did not help this movie. John Wick couldn't save this movie at all.
Yeah. And I feel like they heavily relied on it, right?
Oh, like absolutely.
In the trailer, I feel. See, this is the part that this is probably one of the biggest parts that bums me out about this movie. Really, it was this and Cyberpunk, right? Because Keanu Reeves has made a comeback into Hollywood, right? He had John Wick, which was very successful. He's making the new Bill and Ted sequel, and then from there, he's making a new Matrix sequel. So people are like, "Oh God, Keanu Reeves is back after kind of being in a hiatus for a really long time, at least in the Hollywood scene." And this movie just further hyped it because he started becoming even more ingrained in pop culture. They're like, oh man, now Keanu Reeves is in a video game, Cyberpunk.
Toy Story 4?
That's right. Dude, Kaboom. Yeah. Exactly. Which is another film we reviewed. We actually really liked Toy Story 4, and Keanu Reeves was in that. And then we were like, okay, now he's going to be in SpongeBob. He's a tumbleweed. That seems really on brand for something SpongeBob would do. This looks like it'll be hilarious too. And both of those projects were failures. Cyberpunk had to be recalled because it couldn't even launch on most platforms except for maybe PC. And this movie kind of blew its wad in the trailer. It showed the only really enjoyable part with Keanu Reeves. The rest of it just seemed really flat, really forced. You could tell Keanu Reeves just wasn't given a role to succeed in. He's not the type of actor to give you a wide dynamic range of emotions. And I feel like that's something you need when you're interacting with characters like SpongeBob and Patrick. And it just, most of the time, just fell flat. So that's the part that annoyed me the most, is Keanu Reeves kind of bit the big one there with those two projects, but in particular this one. It just didn't work as well as I thought it would.
Yeah. And I have friends who love at least the PC experience for Cyberpunk. Apparently the story's cool. I haven't dove into that universe at all. But with this movie, it's like it would be okay to have Keanu Reeves' dry delivery as a foil to the shenanigans of SpongeBob and Patrick. That works out. You have the straight man, and then you have the goofier characters. But like the goofier characters weren't funny, and then Keanu Reeves' straight man response then couldn't be funny to unfunny actions that Patrick and SpongeBob were doing. So it was just kind of a waste. The plot was just nothing. Like, it was a big old nothing burger. The original Gary's Gone Missing episode in SpongeBob was 10 times better than this 90-minute search for Gary. What is the entire plot? It's SpongeBob looking for his pet snail. I think the only thing I liked about this movie was more of the whole like, hey, I love my pet snail. I'll do everything with this guy. That's just the one like little sweet tidbit of, SpongeBob loves Gary, and that probably resonates to everyone with a pet or a child or whatever. Other than that, you're right. It was a huge 90-minute advertising for Camp Coral. That's the entirety, because you do have flashbacks of everyone as a kid, how they met and all that kind of stuff. And even that was nothing. Like, I don't care. Like, that where they show that point in the movie, it was supposed to kind of help the characters in that situation, but it just didn't make sense. I think I was slightly excited because this movie was extending the universe a little bit. We got to see a different city Then Bikini Bottom, you got some of the politics, which was, I don't know, kind of absurd. But I'm like, all right, cool. So what are the politics of the Bikini Bottom verse? I'm actually way more interested in that. But overall, highly unentertaining movie. I actually fell asleep the first time I tried to watch it. I got 60 minutes into it, and then I fell the fuck asleep, and I had to finish it later with more alcohol in me. And that didn't really help either. Whether you're maybe new SpongeBob fans might like this. I'm not sure how they feel about SpongeBob old versus new. But for our, Gen Y generation who grew up with SpongeBob and it has infiltrated our culture for seemingly forever, you will be disappointed by this movie. I would probably recommend you have some kind of vice inside of you to even make it through the 90 minutes. It felt mostly like a waste of time, and I was sad for a franchise that I hold dearly. But, you do have SpongeBob just being SpongeBob, so you just want him to do weird antics like a Pee-wee's Playhouse kind of thing, then sure, you can get those vibes. But otherwise, definitely worth skipping.
Look what they did to my boy. Look what they did to my boy. No, there was a bunch of little nitpicky things that just really infuriated me too. For instance, they introduced this robot that Sandy sells to Mr. Krabs, and then Plankton takes over, and you think that's going to be a plot point because they waste about a good 15 minutes on introducing that character, and it just essentially turns into a chauffeur that ends up helping SpongeBob and Patrick for some reason, even though I thought the way they set it up, it made it as if the robot would be a villain later on at the end of the film, and it just turned into nothing. So that part really kind of boggled my mind.
And that was Awkwafina, wasn't it, who voiced the robot? So it's kind of a waste of Awkwafina. Yeah. You don't waste Awkwafina. Okay? She wastes you. She wants. Do whatever she wants.
Yeah, and that part annoyed me. And then the other part that annoyed me was when they're all recalling their experiences from Camp Coral. That took way too long. I think they took about 15 minutes again to just have these weird flashbacks about Camp Coral, which doesn't even canonically make sense in the SpongeBob universe. I think we've talked about this. SpongeBob meets Sandy in the first episode, and Sandy's like, "This is my first time here. Nice to meet you. I'm Sandy." But then they show in this film that they've met before as children and became friends. So I don't really understand. Now the whole universe is
the whole canon. The whole
Conchi canon is gone. So that part was kind of weird for me. The King Neptune part also didn't make sense to me because I'm not sure if what they're trying to do is make a new universe with a new timeline, because SpongeBob met King Neptune in the first film.
Yeah.
Right? And they became friends, but in this one they don't know each other, and there's no reference of maybe they met before the events of the first movie. This is how they met before the events of the first movie. But even then, in the first movie, there's no indication of, hey, these two know each other to some degree. It's almost as if they don't know each other at all. So I know it's SpongeBob. I know it's a kid's show. I know that they probably don't give a shit about making things canonically correct. But I feel like that's a major mistake that most production companies are making now. They're assuming two things that are incorrect: that their audience, even though they're kids, are not going to understand canon and find plot beats that don't make sense, which they do. Kids are smart as shit, right? You're seeing that time and time again. A lot of these shows that are coming out that are really dumb are failing. And two, they fail to understand what made SpongeBob so charming in the first place. The fact that it was relevant to any audience based on the humor. And I feel like this movie just did not care about the older audiences whatsoever. I feel like they had the mentality of, okay, we're not catering this to old SpongeBob fans. We want to cater this to young children who aren't going to really care about any of the past SpongeBob material, and they're going to watch this because it's a cartoon. And then they're going to watch Camp Coral because we're plugging Camp Coral at the end. And it's going to be beautiful for everyone in terms of making money. They went full Mr. Krabs with this one.
They did. They infested with crabs.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's just a huge mistake. So obviously, like I said, things I liked. I thought the cameos were cool. Danny Trejo in this
Are we
was
going to do
pretty.
spoilers, by the way? Are we diving into specific plot
We
stuff?
might, we might as well. We might as well dive into the Bikini Bottom
Yeah.
spoilers, man.
Okay.
'Cause
All right. Well, if you don't want to be spoiled by, you know, of revealing plot points, which it doesn't really matter, but we are going to technically start spoiling the SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run, starting now.
All right. So Gary gave us the go ahead. Yeah, Danny Trejo and Snoop Dogg were probably my favorite part of this film, and they were still only in it for about 10 minutes, I think, at best, right? Because SpongeBob and Patrick are supposed to go on this epic journey to save Gary the snail, whom Plankton has sent to King Neptune because he needs facial products to keep himself looking young. And the only way he can get it is from the slime of snails. So it's already a pretty one-dimensional plot beat. And then yeah, they go on this quest, and the tumbleweed that's Keanu Reeves is like a spirit guide, and he's leading them on the journey of a hero. It's the whole thing is just a very literal hero's journey without any real payoff at the end. And then from there, they show Danny Trejo, who's supposed to be this, I think, this cowboy demon thing. They don't really explain it.
Yeah, pretty much. Cowboy Demon.
Yeah, and he's in it. He's funny, but then he immediately gets murked by SpongeBob and Patrick, and then just gone. Right? He tries to chase him at the end, and he just dissipates into wind or something. And then Snoop Dogg is in it real fast, which I thought was hilarious because it's right on brand for SpongeBob for someone like Snoop Dogg just appear out of nowhere, and add some charm. But again, it wasn't that funny. And then he as soon as he was introduced, he was also like, "All right, peace. It's almost like he was saying, okay, they paid me to do this. Peace. I made my money. You're welcome."
Yeah.
And then gone.
That's how I felt. For sure.
Yeah, those were those were the two enjoyable parts of the movie for me, and then they were over just as quickly as they started. What about you? Was there anything you really enjoyed about this film?
Yeah, it was really just that Snoop Dogg verse. It was kind of fire. There's some good rhyme schemes in there. God, it is a stretch. Like, it started off like, okay, it could have an interesting plot. You're having some kind of AI robot being introduced to run the Krusty Krabs, and I'm like, okay, cool, that's gonna be important. It wasn't at all. At some points, you have like SpongeBob and Patrick trying to dissect cinema tropes, which that it could be interesting if they kind of went all the way in that direction. Patrick was analyzing this movie to be probably a buddy-esque movie, and SpongeBob was like, it's probably a hero's journey, and it's like, all right, well, at least do something with that, breaking the fourth wall, like actually do something, make a point, or subvert it or something. So it started off like, oh, maybe it could be interesting, but then it wasn't. The characters are adorable as children, which is what they're going for. So I'll give them that. They drew some adorable Patrick and SpongeBob, like straight up adorable. So if they're hoping that would sell, at least they are cute, all as kid characters. I don't really see but that didn't help the plot at all. Seeing them in Camp Coral, it was obviously this is just a movie to get people to watch Camp Coral. That's all it is. They're trying to boost up Paramount Plus, which I do have a 30-day free trial of to watch this movie. So, got me there if I forget to unsubscribe, which I do want to do. This movie had no attention to it. It obviously, producers said we need subscriptions. We need to compete with people like Disney Plus. We need content. So let's make this movie. Let's just fucking wrap it up. We'll do a spinoff of Camp Coral. We'll make the Patrick Star Show. They're going to make a Squidward spinoff too. That's more music based, and it'll have a movie of itself too, apparently. This is all literally for the dollars. It was a very Mr. Krabs movie in that term. I think the only thing I actually liked was when King Trident was going over some of his kingly duties, and his right-hand man just kind of in passing mentioned the war. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. What war is happening in Bikini Bottom? I want that movie. I want the whole like SpongeBob and Patrick gets like drafted, and there's like some serious commentary on the pains of war and politics, and how you can be, you know, a well-meaning soldier but supporting a corrupt government. And I'm like, yeah, this is not the show or franchise to do that, but that alone got me in my own universe of SpongeBob. Like, okay, cool, the war, that's interesting. Are they like maybe abusing the people at rock bottom to draft them as soldiers? I wonder what they're doing. But obviously, you know, the movie's not going to be about that. It never will be, and that's okay. So yeah, overall, it's just straight up unlikable, dog. Straight up unlikable.
That's a no for me, dog. Yeah, no, it's like you said, it would have been fine had they made it into an episode, right? 30 minutes, I think, would have been fine. Like, you could make it into a show special,
Yeah.
right? Where it's like, oh, he went missing and now he's back. You cover that in 30 minutes, and I think you would have had a solid episode. But yeah, it was just way too long. There wasn't enough to sustain it. For some reason, I mean, and you would think that people would like this film more because something happens in it that has never happened in the history of the show, which is Plankton finally gets the secret formula to the Krabby Patty, which is something they immediately gloss over.
That's
right?
true.
It's never happened in the show or the previous films. That was always the point of Plankton. And he finally achieved it in this film. And just as quickly, he was just like, oh, well, this is not fun. Right? It was like Mr. Krabs just kind of gave me the secret formula, and now I'm not going to do anything with it. And then he turns into a good guy, right? Which is something I think Plankton should never stand for, because in every episode they've introduced Plankton, even on the redemption episode where SpongeBob tries to make him into a good person with the fun song, he still turns out to be a dick at the end, right? He just kind of played along to try to steal the Krabby Patty formula. And in this one, he just has a random change of heart, which is completely out of character for Plankton. So, yeah, I almost feel as though the writers for this one didn't even really understand the characters they were writing for. This one definitely had to have different writers on it from the previous two films. And like I said, the creator, RIP, is no longer here to kind of watch over that. So yeah, it just didn't hit the same. And it didn't even hit different in a good way. It was pretty man, if I could make an analogy here, it would be like I'm a goldfish who just floated to the top of the tank. After watching this film, I'm just dead. Like, it just wasn't an enjoyable experience. I couldn't sustain being in this world. I was gone. I floated up to the top, man. I took the hooks. I sat on the hooks and I got yanked right out of the water. It was not good.
Yeah.
But like you said, clearly a ploy for Paramount Plus, right? They want to be able to compete with other streaming services. I'm going to pick your brain because I will never get Paramount Plus. So I don't even know what they have there. Is it just a bunch of Nickelodeon? We can get into that a little bit later, but yeah, it just wasn't good, man. It makes me so sad.
Yeah.
What have you done, SpongeBob?
You know, one thing that could have been interesting too, because they end the movie, they're all over the place with messaging and plot points and introducing things that seem to be important, and then they're immediately not. It ended with Bikini Bottom being this snail refugee home where they house all these displaced snails. They advertise that they are a refugee spot for snails. So if that's the ending, then it sounds like the beginning and middle could have been way more interesting. You know, you could have a really deep Zootopia-esque commentary on refugees and how they're treated. Maybe, you know, the king could have been Trump-esque and was really against, you know, being not only good to snails, but treating them throughout the movie as some kind of menace and spinning some kind of politics that snails are only to be utilized for resources. That could have been really interesting, because they ended it pretty serious with like, yeah, we're a refugee place for snails. So I was like, that could have been really cool. You know, introduce Gary's perspective on, you know, his people and what they're going through, the struggle. Then he gets captured by trying to fight the power. That could have been really cool. If you're going to end already as a commentary of refugee, begin that way. That could have been cool, but then it wasn't. So here we are.
Yeah,
here we are.
So we don't like to bloat things up. Normally we take a little bit longer to wrap up our episodes, but I think for this one we pretty much said everything we wanted to, right?
Oh yeah, for SpongeBob's movie Sponge on a Run, not worth it. I would give it a 3.5 out of 10. And that seems generous.
You know what? You're a lot nicer than I am. This one ripped my heart out. It really did. I'm going to award this movie no points. Everyone who has seen this movie is dumber because of it. And all the incoherent rambling this movie made, I award it no points. And may God have mercy on its soul.
Yeah, that's fair. You know, insert Adam Sandler clip right there. Yeah, it will, like, we talked a lot about movies we liked. You know, like, I loved Judas and the Black Messiah. I loved I Care a Lot. You know, Justice League was pretty cool. And a lot of those movies we were talking about, like, where it's going to be in our end of year top 5, top 10 lists. And we're like, yeah, there's no way this movie is not going to be on there. This movie, I will see maybe 100 movies this year. And this won't even make my top 100. So mathematically, that's already impossible, but it still will be 101.
So you enjoyed this movie more than The Ginger Dead Man, or less than The Ginger Dead Man?
Oh, absolutely. Oh yeah, Ginger Dead Man. It's way better, way better. This is definitely the worst movie I've seen that we reviewed, hands down. This is it. And this movie, like, you know, I didn't like the Godzilla movie. You know, Child's Play was okay. This is it. This is the worst. I think the best thing I got out of this was a reason to explore what Paramount Plus has, because I didn't want it, but I was curious what they had. And some of it was cool. You know, it's some of it is what you expect. So, you know, Rugrats, Hey Arnold. I was pleasantly, I don't know why I was surprised, but I just didn't think about them having, like, As Told by Ginger or Rocket Power. Like, oh shit, that's dope. They have, like, some MTV shows like Beavis and Butthead that I watched today. Daria, that was cool. Not a bad collection. Not a bad collection. Obviously, growing up with those titles, All That, Kenan and Kel, Drake and Josh, Amanda Show kind of things. It is nice. It's the nostalgia that usually works. Not yet worth it. Not yet worth it. You know, the only reason why I had Disney Plus even was to watch something new like The Mandalorian and now the Marvel shows. And then, you know, obviously the Marvel movies are cool to be able to watch whenever you want. But even Disney Plus barely got me to subscribe. And Paramount Plus, you know, Camp Coral's not going to do it. I'm not going to tune in for the Patrick Star show. As much as I love Patrick, I'm not going to tune in for Squidward's own show where he fights like Squid William or whatever that character is.
Yeah. Squilliam.
Yeah, Squilliam. I did watch some Celebrity Deathmatch. That was a fun throwback. That was
shit.
Right?
Okay.
Watch Adam Sandler versus Ben Stiller. That's fun. It is fun. But I won't have this past 30 days unless I just forget to unsubscribe.
There you go. Perfect plan, Paramount. That's how you get them.
It is. And it's fair. That's fair. What would you like for the future of SpongeBob, if anything? Are you just kind of done with the content? Would you watch a new thing now that they're obviously going to go in a certain direction with Camp Coral? They'll probably have some Camp Coral movies. Will you watch any new SpongeBob now that this has kind of destroyed your heart?
Well, to be fair, I haven't really watched anything past season 6 of SpongeBob. Mm-hmm. So I can't really judge the show. I'm not sure if the show is still funny. So that could be an interesting project for us in the future. Just kind of rewatch or just go back to SpongeBob past the stuff we remember as kids and see if it holds up. But in terms of movies, I'm probably going to be more hesitant to watch another one in the future just because of just the bad taste this one left in my mouth. But I'm not completely done with the series. In terms of where I'd like to see it go, it's a little tough when the creator dies because he's the one who had the vision for the characters and the world he wanted to build. Whereas in this one, you know, it's new people picking it up and saying like, okay, well, this is what we do with these characters now, which they'll never know as much as the creator, right? They're obviously limited in that capacity. But from what I've seen so far, Nickelodeon Paramount just want to make money off of the franchise now, which I understand the move, right? It's a business move. They're not going to care about it as much as the creator did, right? Because to them, it's just a cash cow. So unfortunately, I don't think it's going to get better anytime soon. But what I think they should do is at least bring back those old writers if they want to come back. Or you know what? At this point, maybe SpongeBob is done, but I would like to see those writers come together and maybe make something new. That would be pretty dope because I love that type of humor.
Sure.
But yeah, take it back to basics with SpongeBob. I think they're heavily relying on the whole 3D animation, cute for kids style. It's not going to work out too well for them. At least in my opinion, maybe it will. Hopefully not, because I'm not a fan of where it's currently at. But yeah, take it back to basics. Maybe bring back some of the old writers. Get that signature charm for SpongeBob back, and then go from there. What about you?
I think, well, I probably won't watch another SpongeBob movie unless for some reason it's on our calendar to review it on the podcast. Because I haven't watched the previous ones, and not that I thought they would be bad. I just honestly just didn't care. I like the SpongeBob I grew up with, like a grumpy old man. That's all that was really in my wheelhouse to watch at all. And I've been rewatching a lot of the old SpongeBob, and of course, still hits. For anything new, I think the one thing I keep pitching, and I don't have that meeting with Paramount yet, and I don't know if they've done this already with the new SpongeBob, but I want like a SpongeBob special or a dedicated movie called Mother of Pearl, where they explore what happened to Pearl's mother, Mr. Krabs', assumed wife or partner at least. What happened to the mother of Pearl? I think that could be, if they actually go like Pixar level heartstrings, that can kind of show like even why Mr. Krabs is who he is now. Like maybe something had to do with money is why Pearl's mother isn't around. Whether they won't ever do this, but maybe she died of cancer. Maybe she died of something really serious. He didn't. Bikini Bottom. They're similar to America. Maybe they don't have health insurance. So actually, I know that because they have a bit that they kick someone out because they don't have health insurance in SpongeBob. There's at least 2 bits. So maybe he couldn't afford treatment for his partner, and then they died. And then since then, he's always been about getting money. So he'd never be in a situation like that again. And then it kind of snowballs into that turning into greed, and he kind of lost sight of that. But then by the end of this movie or special, either you reunite with the mother or you just learn what happens. He learns why he even thought about that in the first place, and then he uses his money for good to like donate to a children's hospital or something like that. They will never do that show a special at any point in SpongeBob. But if I had to pitch a new SpongeBob thing that I'd be interested in viewing, that'd be it. Mother of Pearl.
Yeah, and you do some pretty cool social commentary on like interspecies relationships, right? And you could also tie that into our culture.
Yeah.
I like it.
Right.
I like it.
It's pretty good.
But just hire us as writers, Nickelodeon. All right, just bring us on the team. Hillenburg raised us as children. We understand what he was going for. Just put us on. All right, we'll fix this whole thing.
His will of fire till the death of us.
Exactly. You just have to fund our entire studio, Conch Studio.
Yep.
And we'll call it even.
Yep. And no cease and desist letters can be sent. We own the Magic Conch, TM.
That sounds fair to me.
Yeah, and then everything will be right with the world. But hey, just in case you guys are wondering, will we review more animated stuff? I think so. I think once Raya comes out, and I don't have to pay $30 for it, we'll probably review that.
Yeah.
Actually, I haven't heard of any Pixar movies coming out. I have no idea what's on the docket for Disney Plus material, but I know absolutely we're always down to review a variety of different things. But until the next episode, this has been an After the Act episode. You can find us on Twitch and YouTube like right now. You can actually find us literally right now there. So please like and subscribe on those channels. You get the podcast first, so you can hear us bitch and complain about a children's show like 10 days or so before the next human being. But if you don't want to watch it with the visuals, you can still catch us on your commute on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, pretty much any place you listen to podcasts. We'll be there. Find all of our work at malumpictures.com, where we host all of our podcast stuff and have some games linked there too. You can find us gaming on Twitch and YouTube. We'll play horror games, silly bunny man games. Maybe we'll play a SpongeBob game. We won't, but hey, you don't know until you tune in. But yeah, until next time, peace out, Conchers, Hillenberg for life, and hire us. We'll fix you, Paramount. We'll fix you.
Yeah, we'll add more Tiny Tim, right? Because that's what made SpongeBob great. And you know what, man? Just food for thought for the audience. They should make a video game for SpongeBob where everyone fights karate against one another, like a fighting SpongeBob game. That'd be dope.
I'm with it. Like Mortal Kombat-esque graphics, though. So you have like a Sandy pulling out the spine of Mr. Krabs or something like that. Like I'm with that.
Perfect. Until then, everybody, stay safe and continue on with your nautical nonsense. Peace.
Bye.